Good afternoon, good evening, my friends. How you doing today? Welcome back to another live. What's going on? Turn that up a little bit. How are we doing, everybody? How are we today? How is your Monday afternoon, Monday evening going here in yet another international break? It is absolutely ridiculous that we have another one already, and then we have another, and all of that. But it's good timing. It's going to give me a little bit of time as well. Next week I'm going to be out. Next week I'm going to be out. You cooked with that stat today. You know, Dev, it was very clear I irritated a lot of people with that simple stat number that doesn't really match. I'm really amused to watch the conversation change around United after the win at the weekend. It's really obvious what's going on here. That's not to say that all criticism, all concern, all negativity, all worry, and all of that is wrong, because it's not even close to true. There's plenty of valid reasons for people to be concerned, plenty of valid reasons for people to be negative, plenty of valid reasons for people to be worried about where United are at this point of time. Tons and tons of them. But there's also a lot of shit out there, and unfortunately, I think it influences a lot of the feeling around the club as well, and other people, and gets people feeling really negative. It's so hard. It's so hard to sit, to relax, to be an island in this whole situation that is going on at United. But I'm okay with that. Can't get excited to see positive. Well, that's fair too. And you know, I think it's really, what's really interesting to me in the dynamics of everything that's going on is that one of the things that happens is that when United are losing, when things have been a little bit bad, a little bit rough, a little bit difficult as they've been, when things haven't been smooth, when things haven't been easy.
If we win 3 and draw 1 of the next 5, we're cooking.
You're absolutely right about that. But when things have been difficult, when things have been rough, when things are not going well, a lot of times people look and say everything is wrong, and then things get co-opted. And what's really, I won't want to say irritating, because I can handle it. I think I can handle it. Because is that just because we're losing doesn't make every possible criticism valid. And I was saying this last week, even before we won a game at the weekend, even when I have my own lack of belief over where things are going. And I'm not won over yet. I'm not won over yet by one game. I said before the game, I wasn't going to be won over by one single game. It would just be progress. It would just be, I would just see it as it is. If we have a good game, a good selection, a good approach, I'll be happy with that. It isn't about one game. It's just that I said last week that every criticism is not valid. And the biggest problem that I have is that I see so much bullshit being stated as if it's fact. Just because we're losing, it's easy to convince people that all of those negatives are true when they're not. Thank you, Joe. Good to see you over from the View channel. Thank you for that. And yes, remember to like the stream. Thank you for the reminder to everybody there, Joe. Good to see you as well. And that's just not how it works. And when I defend those points and counteract those points, immediately it turns into a straw man argument of, well, you know, you're just blindly backing the manager in this. And it's not. It's not. I think that there are certainly things that are wrong, and I think there are certainly things that are right. And I think it's important in analysis and criticism to be accurate and to be precise. Because what's the point? What's the point of all of this analysis if it's just broad and sweeping? If it's just endless? I'll give you two examples, okay? Just two like examples of this, and then we're actually going to come back because I want to talk about Onana and I want to talk about Onana for a second, especially given what we saw at the weekend with the keeper. And I want to talk about some concerns over Carlos Baleba as well. And then I want to come back to some of the talk of the game, the numbers and stats, because there's some really interesting stuff to look at here. But what I was saying is that I think it's important that criticism has to be real. It has to be precise. What is actually the problem? What is actually going on? For example, when we'll get to this whole thing about shapes and formation and things like that. You know, one of the things Ruben Amorim said before the game in his press conference, and he's absolutely right, and people do it in to me, the sneakiest way, is he said, whenever we lose, it's the system, and whenever we win, it's not the system. Now, what people will do instead of admitting that it's the system that created these chances when we win is we'll say, oh, well, he changed the system. I pointed this out at the start of the season. Say, oh, he changed the system. That's why it worked suddenly. Very, very clever way of never having to admit you're wrong. We changed the system this week. Why doesn't he keep doing that? Why didn't he change it earlier? Why don't we keep doing this? We've seen him change it like this before. Why don't we keep doing this? And it's a very clever way. I got to admit, it's a really, really clever way of avoiding saying, I was wrong. Very, very clever. Very clever. Because it's hard to argue with it. Did we see something different against Sunderland than we saw against Brentford? Yep. Absolutely. Why? Same reason I've been telling you for 6 weeks now. It's personnel. He didn't change a system. We just put different players on the pitch. Players dictate the system very often. Their tendencies, their habits, their way of approaching the game, their things they want to do, the things they are instinctually doing will change the system. Mason Mount changes the system. Amad Diallo, out wide at wingback, changes the system. Their natural tendencies and their natural ways of playing and their natural ways of doing things changes the system. It is a personnel problem that is disguised as a system problem because system is dictated by players for the most part. Every manager says that. Even Ten Hag said that, and he was correct. The players dictate your system. The players you put out on the pitch tend to dictate the way that you play. And I'll give you the big example of this is Diogo Dalot. Diogo Dalot. Everybody who was at that game watched it on TV or has spoken about it afterwards from the guys at the a view, from the guys on the Talk of the Devils, from everybody watching it knows this to be the case. And I told you it last week when I analyzed that Brentford game. The problem you have with Diogo Dalot is he doesn't listen. He doesn't get it. Every player on that pitch was screaming, including Ruben Amorim, at Diogo Dalot for dropping too deep and not stepping up out of the line of defense to properly mark his player. Everyone saw it. De Ligt was screaming at him. Mount was screaming at him. Shaw was screaming at him. Amorim was screaming at him. Every single person on that left side was yelling at Diogo Dalot because he drops too deep, too quickly, and forms a defensive backline when he's supposed to step out. And I even caught it on picture and posted and showed it in my tactical video that I posted yesterday. Okay? He does not understand the game. And even if he says he does, he doesn't get it. His instincts are not there. So when Diogo Dalot plays, we literally can't do the same thing regardless of instruction. And that's a really good point, Joe. And that's the point I want to address on this. And then we're going to come back to it. Isn't that the big reason why a manager should be adaptable? Because the players dictate the system. That is totally true. Except this is the uniqueness of the situation that we're in, right? We have a failed team. We have a failed group of players. If you adapt to a failed group of players, you will also fail. So the question becomes, what is the actual job at hand? If you're coming into Liverpool slot, right? You're coming into Liverpool, a successful team, a successful place, a successful club. Do you want to adapt to the team that is there? Yes. And you want to play into their strengths because they are success. If you're coming into Man City and following up Pep Guardiola, would you want to adapt to the squad that's there? Yes. If you're coming into Chelsea, where you have a million players to choose from, it's a mixture. You have so many players to choose from, you can kind of put players on that fit what you want and work it out. But if you're coming into a team that is failed, a failed group, do you want to adapt? No, of course not. And some people say it's a failed group of players. It's a new team, barring, and then you'll name 5 players who play every single week. I've just talked about Dalot. Dalot is a failed player. Shaw is there. He's a mixture of a failed player. That is the problem that you have. If you had a squad that was actually rebuilt, great. All Ruben Amorim has is 5 players that have joined. And even if you take it back further, here's what I would argue. Who are the players who are actually succeeding? Who are the players that are improving? Who are the players that are somewhat thriving? Well, it's mostly guys who haven't been here that long. Even down to last summer, De Ligt, Euro, these types of guys. So, yeah, they shouldn't be playing. If you're coming into a team of suit dummies, I don't know what you can do. So it's a mixture of arguments. And suddenly, here's the crazy part, okay? Everybody knows, and everybody said for years, that we built a Frankenstein's monster of a team that has been built for 6 different managers and different this and different that and different that. And then suddenly it's, there's only 5. Well, no, there's a lot more than 5. There's a lot more than 5. There's a hell of a lot more than 5. There's a lot more people who have been here for longer than that. Onana, I mean, lots of players in there are that we had to deal with before this season. We've turned over a lot. But there's still obviously more to go that needs to happen. But regardless, this is the difference. The defenders, yeah, but Joe, I'm talking about Lenny, De Ligt. I think Ahmad still. I mean, here, let me make this case about Ahmad, which to me is really, really stupid. All right, this is where I think people really twist it. Some on purpose and some not so much. Suddenly, I'm hearing that Ruben Amorim has made Ahmad worse. Are you insane? Ahmad wasn't even playing. I heard somebody make the case that Ahmad, you're throwing him out on wingback, this good player. Excuse me, hold on a second. When the fuck was Ahmad playing before Ruben Amorim at all? Forget at wingback. When was this period where Ahmad was playing well for United pre-Ruben Amorim? When? That he suddenly ruined him. Excuse me? And then he goes and, of course, has a really, really good game at the weekend. When was Ahmad thriving in a forward position at United? Even last season, he had his best games at wingback. He got a hat trick from wingback. Ruben Amorim made Ahmad at United. At United. Ruben Amorim made Ahmad. He was about to leave before Ruben. He was about to leave. He was on his way out. He was done. We all remember the picture of him getting subbed on under Ten Hag, and his face at that point in time. He was going to leave. He didn't even play after he had the winner against Liverpool. That's where it's like, come on, guys. Come on, man. But anyway, I would argue the more new players that come in, the better it gets. The better it gets, time and time again. As we've seen with Benjamin Šeško, he's starting to thrive. Lammens comes in. It's been 1 game. Mbumo getting there, But anyway, we'll come back to the players here in a minute. But my point was simply that, at the end of the day, I think there is a very, very, a very strange, a very odd way that things are, the things are going here. Frankly, I think it's really, really weird to be quite honest, the way that the discussion is. And all I'm saying is that, when you look at it in general, a lot of people are gonna mix the discussion up, and everything, everything, it just gets silly. And all I'm saying is that when you defend certain points, that doesn't make it everything's okay. It makes it a balanced discussion. It needs to be a balanced discussion. There's just too many bad arguments. Exactly that. It's just that there's too many, like, defending against bad faith arguments, pushing back against untrue statements are not blind defense of something. It's called being balanced and reasonable. It's called having an actual, looking at things more from an objective standpoint and saying, where are we actually at, and what is actually going on right now. Let's talk quickly about Onana, and then Baleba, and then I want to get back to a few points on this that I think are very, very important. Here's a story on Onana here. Oh no, screwed up. There we go. Come on. Hello. There we go. All right. This comes from Rahman Osman. Now, he writes for The Sun, but I will tell you he is very, very well sourced with a lot of African players. He wrote an article here that has just come out that says that Manchester United's goalkeeper Andre Onana is lined up for a permanent transfer.
Be asking for 4,231.
Yeah, I hear you. That he's lined up for a permanent transfer just weeks after shock loan move. Now, this article states that Trabzonspor, where he is on loan, already want to make this deal permanent, even though there is not a permanent deal there in place on the loan, and that they want to make a move for Onana. So that is a very good sign. Apparently, they're already happy with him. Now, we know, of course, with certainty that Onana is done at United. His time at United is up. One way or another, he will not be coming back. So this is a very good thing. This is a very good thing. We know that he's not coming back as keeper. So yeah, they'll have the ability to pay decent wages and money and all of that. But this is good. This is a good sign. This is a good thing. Hopefully it gets done nice and early and we don't have a saga next summer of trying to move somebody on. Hopefully they get a permanent deal agreed well ahead of time and we don't even have to think about it. Get some money in, get some of those wages permanently off and see those savings before next summer. That'll be a very, very good thing to see. So with Onana, that looks like a good sign. That's going to be done. I know it's The Sun, but you have to look at the journalist. I promise you that journalist is very, very well sourced he has a lot of connections to usually London, but also with a number of African players and agents and people around them. And certainly, I'm just telling you from my own knowledge of this, that is one to listen to. Okay, I would definitely trust that individual who writes that story is a very good journalist. So that looks very likely. That is very good news. And that is one that, who knows in terms of the money. We'll see what Trabzonspor can offer. Now, United made the purchase of Onana for, what was it, 40-something million? So they're going to be owing at the end of this season about 18. If we can get maybe 10 to 15 million in wages off, it's a win. That makes it a lot easier. So that'll be a good one. I think hopefully looks like it'll be done ahead of summer, should talks be opening there. Obviously, they're ready to let him go already. Certainly, they know that it's okay. We really only need 12 to 15 to get that gone. So if they're already interested, I think that's very, very good. I think that's going to help us a lot. Freeing up more funds, freeing up more wages. He's actually on pretty significant wages too. So that would be a big gain for us and a good start to things, going into next summer. Obviously, again, we've got our number one keeper. I do want to remind on that point when it comes to Senna Lammens. I did tell you Senna Lammens will be our number one keeper. He was signed and brought in for number one keeper. I was listening to Talk of the Devils, Andy Mitten earlier, insisted as well. Senna Lammens has been brought in to be the number one keeper at Manchester United. He's gotten his chance. I did note as well that with most of our signings, Mbumo, Šeško, as well as Senna Lammens, they got 3-4 weeks before they were kind of put on the pitch, really, from the time that they've agreed to get those signings until they actually got going. Mbumo didn't even really play or start until the end of the tour over there. And we know that Šeško, he was signed before the season started, got his first start about a month later. Senna Lammens was the same. But Senna Lammens was brought in to be the number one keeper. I'd be absolutely shocked if he doesn't retain his place after the break, of course, and all of that. But Onana leaving, obviously there's still a chance that we could look for a senior keeper next year, but Senna Lammens is the number one. And he was brought in to be that with a good starting performance. Yeah, he should retain his place and give himself at least a good chance in order to continue that process and continue in that number one position. So obviously Onana's fate at United is sealed. I mean, that was obvious this summer, but still, like, you know, it's clearly done. It's clearly done. It's clearly done there. So that's a good sign. We need that money. We need those savings. We need to work on that budget for next summer. We need that money. We need to spend because we need quite a few things at this point in time. One second. So yes, so that's a good sign. The second thing is I want to talk about Carlos Baleba. I've been talking to some people that I speak with in some different circles and things like that. And I would certainly say that there is a bit of concern over Carlos Baleba at this time. Some people have been watching him. Some people are quite worried. And obviously I think it's going to come down to what Brighton end up asking for Carlos Baleba at this point in time. Obviously, it's okay for a young player to have some inconsistencies, for a young player to have a bit of a tough start to the season and all that. Baleba has been and continued to be, following the end of summer, our number one target for January and for the next summer to move forward into that midfield position. But he looks bad. And it's not just like a little bit. He looks poor. And I think the problem then comes down to, of course, again, a young player can go up and down and all of that kind of stuff. But you can't be paying 100+ million in terms of a price if that's what you're seeing. Because again, the whole point with United was saying, look, we're not going to pay an endless amount of money for this player. We're not willing to go up to, an infinite amount of money because it's not a sure thing. You're still talking about potential when you talk about Carlos Baleba. You're still talking about a player who needs to grow, who needs to be consistent, who needs all of these things. I'm not saying he's not good. I'm not saying he's not a great prospect. I'm not saying United are turning away from him. But certainly, I would say there are doubts over the type of money, growing doubts over the type of money that Brighton are asking for. Realistically, should United make a move for him in January, which I still think is very much on the table, to get a midfielder in at that point in time, I don't think they're going to be looking at that kind of money for him. I don't think they're going to be in any universe looking for that kind of money. You compare him as well to like, say, Adam Wharton right now, playing in a role that fits what we need, which I'll talk about in a second. And if you can get him for 80 million, he's a much better buy. Unless you're getting Baleba in that 60 million range, I'm swinging my head back the other way if I'm United to buying Wharton for 80. Because he's doing it on a weekly basis. He's doing it. And I'll show some interesting things and some interesting analysis, and which I brought up to some people I speak with, and and calls back to some of the stuff we spoke about in summer in terms of the midfield as well. But yeah, I mean, they were willing to pay more than that 55, 60 million for sure for Baleba at that point in time, but they were not willing to go into that 110, 120 bracket. They still have some doubts and concerns, and I think that that's fair enough. But yeah, it's an interesting thing, and the other aspect of this midfield discussion comes down to what are they actually doing? What role are they actually playing? So in the summer, I described this problem we have as, the way that Ruben Amorim sets up his midfield, and the reason that he's discussing that we keep seeing the midfield selection is on the basis of having one player who's more of a sitter and a shield, and one player who's more of a presser who gets around, and that you always need that kind of balance. And the problem that you have with the midfielders that we see right now is, besides Casemiro, they're pretty much all 8s. Actually, if you actually look at the problem we have here, besides Casemiro, pretty much everyone is an 8. Bruno wants to press. Ugarte wants to press. Mainu is not a sitter. He carries the ball forward, even though maybe he almost could even be closer. When you play Ugarte with Bruno, one of the reasons it's bad is the partnership. The balance of it is just terrible. If you played Casemiro with Ugarte like we did, it can be successful because Ugarte is then not the sitter. He's the presser. Casemiro is the sitter. And it's the same for Casemiro and Bruno, that Casemiro sits and he sniffs out danger. And I noted this a few weeks ago, and it is absolutely the way that the case in terms of what they're looking at. So if we're looking at a replacement for Casemiro, we want somebody who is a good passer, who can shield the back line properly, has good instincts for danger, and wins a lot of their duels from deep. Well, the two players that fit that best today are Yeoman and Adam Wharton, if you actually look at it right now. The thing with Baleba is the feeling like he could be that guy, but at the moment, he's not. And at the moment, his performances are not giving that. And there's a reason we kind of looked at Yeoman and Wharton as the alternatives to Baleba at that point in time, is because maybe Baleba could be the top guy, but I really would not lose sight at all of those other two names. And I'll show you here with some stats, okay? Just stylistically. We've seen this before. We have seen this before. Blue is Casemiro. Passes from deep, wins a high percentage of duels. Now, he's winning a bit more of the ball, probably because we're not that good defensively. Forward pass percentage, forward passes. Yeoman is basically Casemiro. I'm just telling you, like, that's what he is. That's why they liked him. He's Casemiro. He's essentially Casemiro. He's not very fast. He's not so much like... But he has a good eye for danger. He has good instincts to sniff out the danger. He's more of a sitter. He's not going to rush forward. He's a good passer of the ball in terms of hitting big forward passes and things like that, so he doesn't carry the ball forward, and that's why they looked at him. Now, Adam Wharton is kind of the same. Again, I'm not basing so much off of this possessions one stat because that's really team dependent. The difference with Wharton is he's a much more creative passer. He's a bit more of a playmaker from deep, not just passing the ball forward, but getting into attacking positions. So he gets a lot more key passes, but also because Palace play really ultimately on the break, when they win the ball, Wharton get forward, get the ball in for a shot really, really quickly. But stylistically, they play about the same type of football. They could do a lot of that. So... the this is where there's certainly some doubts creeping in about Baleba, but at the same time, there's another big problem we have here, which is competition. And Rodri just went down with another injury. So we know, what are City going to do? Because it's what they always do. They're going to go into January and they're going to look for a Rodri replacement. And we're going to be competing. We're going to be competing with them. So this is a bit of a concern here, because essentially, yes, what we're looking for and City are looking for, and even potentially Liverpool are looking for, is going to be almost the same thing, which is this backline shield, this sitter who's good on the ball, moves the ball around, very good instinctually sniffing out danger. Everybody's looking for, not saying the same player as Rodri, because Rodri, at his best, was doing more than practically anybody could. But that's kind of what you're looking for. And everybody's going to be fighting for the same thing here. And so, it's like, well, obviously it really depends. I don't know what, Elliot Anderson's numbers, by the way, look incredible to me. But here, I'll show you. Here's my concern with Elliot Anderson. Let's look at his numbers really quick. He's an all-rounder, but that makes him more of an 8. You understand? Like he's doing a lot of things, but every time I look at him and I say he's an 8, not a guy who's going to sit in front of the back line and sniff out the danger. I'm not saying he's not good. He's fantastic. But I would probably say I'd like Anderson to replace Bruno if I was going to ask where I think he fits best on the pitch. And if you were in a 3, I wouldn't have Anderson as the deeper midfielder either. I'd have him as a box-to-box type of midfielder as well. But yeah, Liverpool are in the same boat. So now everyone is looking for the same players. If Baleba is casting doubts and Brighton are still going to demand a very high fee, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, honestly. Like, we're all going to be competing for the same position. If you were to get 2 midfielders, I would certainly go for Anderson and go for Wharton or something as a combination. But yeah, it's a bit of a worry. But I do know, based on understanding and conversations I've had about what United are looking for, we want more of that Casemiro. And Ruben's analysis so far in this season has been, that's what's missing, and that's why he keeps picking Casemiro, and that's why he keeps putting Casemiro in there, and that's what Casemiro does, is he brings that presence at the back, that shield in the back line, all of that stuff, so that you're having, that's what we need. That's what we're not getting right now from anybody else. So it's important that we see that, it's just an interesting problem we might be running into here soon, of who do we get, because we need it. And at the moment, Baleba is not pulling up trees, and there might be some doubts there about him. So this is an evolving situation, but if we want to go for somebody in January, I'm really, really not sure who it's going to be. Why can't Ugarte do that? It's just not his game. Honestly, like, this is where I talk about this point on, which is a good segue back into this point on system versus instruction versus instincts and natural stuff. Okay. Ugarte's strength, which he does have, is rushing forward, pressing high, winning the ball high, not sitting deep. And this is why, of course, the Casemiro and Ugarte partnership made sense last year in Europe when we did it. You reduce the natural tendencies, Ugarte rushing into challenges, throwing off players, things like that. It's good. Kind of like Fred. I always use Fred as a reference point for something like this. If you try to deploy Fred as your deep midfielder, you're screwed. If you try to deploy Fred as more of almost an attacking midfielder, he can do a really good job for you. And we saw him essentially misused as his time. And no matter what you instruct, he's not going to be that guy. Ugarte sat deep at Sporting. Not really. He was still a bit of the destroyer, because they also had a ton of the ball. So he was able to sit a lot higher, than where we are right now. But we need this regardless of manager, to be quite honest. I understand what he did against Arsenal, but at Sporting, they played a very defensive system when they played big games. When they played big games, it was very defensive against City, against Arsenal, all of that, because obviously the quality, the gulf of players is very huge. So they would sit really deep. That's different to being the backline shield in a team that wants to dominate. Sitting deep and being the backline shield when you're trying to dominate the game is very different to defending deep when you're trying to defend deep. They're two different jobs, frankly. Casemiro is good instinctually at sniffing out danger in the game when it's when ahead of the time, when you're trying to actually have the ball. He's just too slow for the most part. So this is kind of where it comes into this problem, this back and forth over system versus personnel and things like that. And there's a few things that I want to talk about today. First, I want to talk about, go back to this point we were talking about on Diogo Dalot. Again, after Brentford and a few other games, I said, look, Amorim's biggest problem here is a selection problem, is picking players and all of that. It's not being able to pick the right guys. Last week, the team was essentially supposed to play with Amad Diallo, but of course, Amad Diallo ended up being gone in terms for bereavement, for family loss. And that changed the game plan that we approached.
Isn't Baleba also more 8ish than a pure 6? And I say this as someone who is still keen on the Baleba signing despite the dip in form, so long as the price is good.
The view with Baleba, because you're not totally wrong there, the view with Baleba is that he could do whichever, is that he has the ability and the instincts to do both. But regardless, but yeah, I agree with you on that. But the idea is that he would be fine for both with the talent that he has and with what he does. He can kind of do whichever is needed there. That's really the point. But we run into this huge problem of personnel and their instincts and their default behaviors versus what the manager wants versus the system versus these types of things. And it makes a big difference, And I said after Brentford, and I've said it so many times throughout this season, that we're not changing the system from a week-to-week basis. There's always small instructional tweaks and little things like that, that matter. There's always small things. There's little things that make a difference in terms of, what you're going into the game preparing and what you're trying to do and all of that. But the system remains a constant, and the problem we really have here is we have one winger in Amat who can play out wide. We have one wing back in Dorgu that at least has the athleticism and the natural instinct to get forward, but still needs a lot of work in his technical abilities, final ball, and all of that. And I think he'll grow into it. And at the same time, you want 10s who can drop in and support the midfield more. The change that we saw against Sunderland at the weekend is down to personnel. And again, just being balanced on what is going on. There's been the huge sort of talking point that comes out is that, we went to the 4-4-2. We saw it in preseason. Why haven't we seen it again? Etc. It's the players. It's the players. That's it. It's the players. The players are the reason we can or cannot do that. And again, I will use Dalot as the example here, because even still against Sunderland, we dropped too deep too quickly, It is the natural instincts of the players. The game happens so fast. The game happens at a lot of speed. Like, it's not sitting in this slow thing where you can set up a play where you can do it. It's Mason Mount working extremely hard and being an incredibly intelligent presser, dropping into the midfield at the right times while still being able to press properly. That forms it into a 4. It's Ahmad stepping up really fast when he needs to. That makes it a 4 in the middle. Very often what you get on that left side when it's not Mason Mount and when it was somebody else is they want to press, which Mason Mount does too, but they cheat. Because they want to press, they walk higher. They stay higher than they should so that they can try to press quickly at the right time. Whereas with Mount, he will run back into the midfield and he will time his run bursting forward at the right time while maintaining that shape. And it's the same with Ahmad. And Dalot is the example of who doesn't get it no matter how many times he's instructed. All game, De Ligt, Shaw, Amorim, and Mount are yelling at him to get up the pitch quicker, get up the pitch quicker, get up the pitch quicker, to press higher. Because, again, the whole thing has to move on its axis, which is the back. When Ahmad has to drop, which happens, the other wingback has to be up or the shape is gone, and vice versa. It only works on one side because Ahmad will get into that position quickly and Dalot won't. Okay? That's why the left side was dead, because Dalot would not, out of possession, get up into that block quick enough. And that was conceding territory to Sunderland, and it makes Mount have to run out of position to go and track someone. And there was numerous times this happened throughout the game, which led to the more threatening moments from Sunderland. So, there's that aspect of it, that where I look at where are we really at? And is there actually improvement? Is there actually progress? Is there actually this or that? And I'm saying, look, just because the criticism, the things that are going on need to be like valid. They need to be real. They need to be serious. They need to be not just random and it's everything. Okay. The players are dictating the shape to a large degree, or allowing or disallowing us to get into the types of shapes that we need to be in order to play well. Okay. But you're talking about a lot of stuff at speed. And yes, the natural instincts of players determine so much about how they're going to play and what they're going to do and all of that. And yeah, we picked a manager who needs pretty precise personnel in order to make this work. And guess what? That was the whole point. Again, going back to that earlier discussion of should a manager be adaptable, it depends on the job. The job he was brought in to do was to implement a way of playing, not adapt to the players that he has. Implement a way of playing. It's their job to supply him with the right players for it. When they've done that, you can see that it works. Look at Šeško, look at Mbumo, look at Lammens. Cunha will get going, right? It works. Look at De Ligt, how much he's evolved this season to the next because he's an intelligent player who's getting it. The job is to get those guys into the team. We still need more. We still need more. Yes, it's precise. Yes, it is very precise. Yes, it requires a lot. It is a very much a positional system. It is very much a positional system. It is very specific in its style of play and how it wants to be. Yes, totally. That's what they wanted in hiring a manager. And that's what the fan base used to want. And then now that we're dealing with it, we don't necessarily have the stomach for it. And it's rough. That's not to say that there are no failings. That's not to say that there isn't. Like I've said before, my biggest criticism that I'll be very, very strong on is the accountability factor. That certain players need to be dropped. Diogo Dalot should not be starting at Anfield. He should not be starting at Anfield. He might. I don't know if he will, but he should not be starting at Anfield. And you might say, well, the problem is that maybe Dorgu is actually injured. I mean, he had a bunch of strapping on his legs or something like that. So I guess maybe he's injured, and maybe that is actually the explanation that, and he's not fit to start. We might not, that might be the truth, and we don't know about it. But still, I would very much like to see Diogo Dalot not start at Anfield, Player selection, learning, holding players accountable is a big factor. Ruben Amorim said before the game that it's players who don't do the basics. That is the problem. It is the inability to do the basics. That is the problem. It is an inability to do the basics in there. Okay? That's the issue. And when you look at Mason Mount, why is Mason Mount playing? Because he's a fucking professional. And it's amazing how many guys are not professional in that team. And it is infuriating. And it bothers me that people are letting him off the hook for that. It bothers me. And suddenly acting like they're all okay. Guys, how many years have we seen United players fail at the basics under 3, 4, 5 managers? We've seen it for a long time. It's been a culture that allows you to get away with the minimum viable product. The least effort that you can escape with has been the culture at United for a long time. Mason Mount does the basics and has a man of the match performance. Senna Lammens comes in as keeper. What does he do? The basics. And we keep a clean sheet. We have too many guys that do not do the basics. Let's talk about Ahmad for a minute. I think Ahmad is a really, really impressive player. I think he had a really great game. We know the ceiling for him. Ahmad's failing at times is that he's inconsistent in doing the basics. He needs to raise his standards there. His bottom. The bottom line that he can produce, he needs to raise it because sometimes he fails to do the basics. As good as he is. Sometimes he does. Sometimes he gives up on it. Sometimes he's lazy with his passing. Sometimes he's lazy with his possession where it seems like he's doing it too casually. We need guys doing the basics. De Ligt is doing the basics right every single game. Every single game. Benjamin Šeško is doing the basics. That's what he's doing. And he's doing some things a little bit better than that, mind you. But that's what we're asking for. And you can see that the difference of having players who you can rely on week in and week out is better. We are a much better team when Mason Mount plays. Every manager ends up picking Mason Mount at United and previously too, mind you, because he knows what he's doing. You know what you're going to get out of Mason Mount all the time. You really do. And that matters. The only players from previous regimes. Here's the problem with that, Michael. Are you considering last season in your judgment of Amorim? Because based on this season alone, Amorim doesn't deserve to be sacked. Not even close, Michael. So that's true for this season. There's not that many left, right? I'm not attacking you, but I'm making that point. Do they need to be removed? Probably, some of them. But the problem is with the argument on this point is that people say, well, we only have a few players. Well, not last year. Last year, he had 0 signings. It was all old players. We kicked out 6 more. Now we've kicked out 8 from that period of time, right? So if someone is going to make, this is where the argument gets disingenuous, right? Not saying you're making this, but it was a good point into transition for this point. If someone is judging Ruben Amorim off of last season, then you cannot say, well, we only have 5 players. Well, then don't count last season when we had 16 of them because we got rid of a lot. Yeah, no. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't going at you. Your point there led me to the next thing. This is where I think there's extremely bad faith arguments. If you're judging Amorim off last season, then don't tell me there's only 5 remaining players. No, we had 16 remaining players. We only had signed 6, right? Under Ineos, you know? We only had signed 6. So no, it was the bulk of the squad was old. We did a huge turnover this season. Based on this season alone, Ruben Amorim doesn't deserve to be sacked. I'm not saying you have to be utterly convinced by him either. I'm not. But based on this season alone, Ruben Amorim should remain in the job and shouldn't even particularly be under threat as of yet. You wouldn't be considering sacking a manager based on this season alone that we've had as of yet. You absolutely wouldn't. It would be weird at this point in the season to be considering that with the teams that you've looked at we've played. 2 of our losses against Arsenal and City, etc. Some missed penalties, red card that should have been, there's a lot of confounding factors in here, but even all things aside, it's not been that bad. right? So my point is, do we need then to remove even more, or in addition to the guys? And that's not that simple. I think it's getting better because there's fewer of them. I think it is getting better. I think it is improving, and I think that as he's figuring out that even some of the guys that are left can't be relied on. I think he'll figure that out more and more. Right? We've finally got Lammens on the pitch versus Bayindir, right? And there you go. I think we're going to see it more and more and more. One of the ones who doesn't, anyway, but that's my point, is that this is where the judgment needs to be fair. Based on this season, I think Ruben Amorim's made mistakes. I think based on this season, Ruben Amorim's mistakes have mostly been picking people he still shouldn't be picking. And he's been, to me, too slow to recognize that, especially Dalot, especially Shaw. And I can understand taking your time with Lammens on the keeper front, but especially a couple of those guys, because they've cost you a lot, right? They've cost you a lot. I think on this season, it's certainly not been flawless, but I'm just, there's a lot of arguments made against him, a lot of critiques made against him that are just not fair.
This season is a continuation of last season. We couldn't remove all the dead wood. We are halfway through with that. I hope Amorim turns it around.
Yeah, me too. So that's my point. When I look at it, I go, yeah, last season, we had a lot of old players in this team. We had a ton of old players in this team, all of them. He had no signings. Patrick Dorgu was his only addition. So someone sit there and say, no, it's not a turnover. It's a turnover squad. Well, that's fair if you're not counting last season at all and holding it against him, but you clearly are. And if you're holding last season against him, then you have to consider the players that were available last season and how many of them are from failed regimes, failed times. How many of them are inconsistent and do the basics? Because that's what I would say about Garnacho, about Antony, about a lot of these players. They wouldn't do the basics regularly. They had poor attitudes, poor application at times, and just wouldn't do the things that they needed to do. So that's one aspect of it. I look at to me, that's just a bad faith argument. And again, it's none of that is saying that everything is great with Amorim. It's just that there's too much bullshit. And I wish that it wasn't so, I don't know. What's the word for it? I wish that it just wasn't so agenda-y on it. You know what I mean? I wish it could be more honest in terms of what's working and what isn't. That's all. And that's one of those things. We know it. The players, the shape, the adjustments, all of that. Like I said, Ruben said himself, and I pointed this out early in the season. Ruben said, when we lose, it's the system. When we win, it's not the system. And there's a very, very clear way that people critique. Whenever we win, instead of saying his system produced it, they'll say he changed it. If you listen to Lebris, the coach for Sunderland, he said two things killed him. One was the Ahmad and Mbeumo combination on that right side that they had to make a substitution at 2-0 down for. That's the system that won that. The system created that situation that Sunderland couldn't deal with. The system, we know, I've showed you a million times, the system is based on creating that overload of Mbeumo and Ahmad at that side. And the second thing he said is they couldn't deal with the long balls. And that leads me to the next thing. This sudden, as soon as we win, suddenly it's all long balls, and suddenly long balls are a bad thing. Suddenly long balls are a bad thing. Suddenly that's it. Suddenly it's all about that, right? Long balls. You can't win with long balls. That's it. Can't win with long balls. Nobody does long balls. Suddenly it changes. The argument changes into something else. I can't stand that shit. All right. First of all, let's go look at long balls, okay? You ready for this? This is going to be fun. United, yes, are the first team in the league at long balls. Okay? Ready? Guess who was in the top last year? Okay? Don't know. Wasn't a lot last year. What about the year before? Oh, look, Man City. Oops. Second in the league in long balls. Liverpool, fourth. What about the year before? Liverpool first. City first. Second. Okay. What about the year before? Oh, look, City and Liverpool, most long balls in the league. What about the year before? That was a weird year. Nobody was playing long ball in 2021. How weird. Let's go a year earlier. Oh, look at that. City and Liverpool and Chelsea, top of the long balls. Okay. Fuck off, man. Like, just fuck off with that. It's so disingenuous. It's such a disingenuous argument, this long ball thing suddenly. It's so disingenuous, man. It's actually unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's crazy what people are going to come up with next. This weekend, Liverpool hit 67 long balls. United hit 59. And the majority of them, by the way, came in the second half. Of course, because United were already winning. When United lost to City, City hit 55 of them. They did the exact same thing to us. They protected a lead by going long to keep the ball away from their net. That's football, man. That's football. Everybody does it. That's football. The idea suddenly that as soon as we win, it's a bad thing is insane. It's insanity. It's unbelievable. It's ridiculous. It's crazy. It's actually nuts. And it's like, this is so wild, you know? It's just, it is pure. We have reached peak Dunning-Kruger effect in football discourse. We have reached peak. This is it. Everyone is such an expert. Everyone is such an expert now. Everyone is such an expert now. And if you don't know what the Dunning-Kruger effect is, it's essentially this thing where people who get a little bit of knowledge believe that they know everything at that point in time. And then as people really, really find out more, their confidence in what they know drops off dramatically, and then it comes back up to an even level once they actually learn something. We have reached peak Dunning-Kruger in football discussion. It is painful at this point, you know, where everybody is a tactical expert. It's not just football, but I'll keep it to football because it's in health, it's in politics, it's in everything. It's in absolutely everything. The irony in you saying, no, there's no irony in it. I don't believe that I know better than the football team. I don't believe I know better than the coach every day. I don't sit there and go, oh, the system is shit to everybody. Even under Ten Hag, what did I say about him? If you go back in time, it was factual. Stuff that I had a problem with Ten Hag was factual. It wasn't the system. It wasn't tactics. It wasn't, I understand football better than Eric Ten Hag. It was, you bought shit players who can't perform well and overpaid for them. And it was the fact that we did not, there was other things behind the scenes too that have nothing to do with tactics and knowledge and any of that in terms of the information that I shared about how we dealt with certain players and the dressing room and things like that. That's a different story. I don't think I know better than these guys. And I also think there's a billion different ways to do things. You know, there's a billion different ways to do things. I also think, for what it's worth, that I spend a hell of a lot of time researching and learning at this point. So maybe there's some things I know. Dunning-Kruger was about performance in sports. It's been poorly applied to a lot of things. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't go, you'll notice if you listen to me, I'm not going to use all these football terms and try to pretend I know about every single tactic and this and that. I just watch and say what I see, but I also know that I don't know better. And every single day I'm hoping, I'm hoping that they'll do something that works really well and we can see it. But we've reached that. I saw people complaining today, sack the manager because our 19-pass goal sequence didn't go through the middle. You know how fucking stupid that is? Do you know how stupid that is? Takes the cake for the dumbest thing I have seen yet. That our 19-pass goal sequence didn't go through the middle. That it went up and around the middle and around. not only because it's stupid in general, because it's a 19-pass goal sequence for a goal, which was the best one in the league this season. But if you've been watching football for any length of time, you will know that most goal sequences go out to in, because where is the defense? It's in the middle. It's blocking off the middle. Why is it blocking off the middle? Because that's where the fucking goal is. So the defenders block the middle, and most teams will try to go around the middle, find a gap around the middle, find the gap, and then get it in at the right moment and score. That's every goal.
That's know everything. Shushing face emoji.
For sure. Look, and there's people that do know a lot. There's people who are smart tactical analysis. There's a lot of them, actually. But there's so much bullshit out there. And there are so many things that there are worth criticizing. There's so many things that there's worth criticizing. We can't get to them because all the discussion is about things that make no sense at all. You know, that's how you draw the defense out. You move side to side around the middle in a U shape, and then you get it in at the right moment to get it into there and score. You're not passing direct up through the middle. You know, that's just not how goals are scored in football. That's just like, it's wacky, man. It's so weird, the stuff that goes on. You know, so that was an annoying part of it. This whole long ball thing, the this, that, and the other is like, all right, whatever. Okay. But these are the things that are disingenuous. And I want to look at some really interesting stats. Not all good, but it's actually really, really quite interesting. So point being is that there's a lot of, whenever we win, it's can never be accounted for. Whenever we lose, it's always going to be accounted for. Correct, Avian. People decide where they stand, and then they argue in the reverse. I'm trying to take an objective look at things, to be quite honest. And then you get this thing about stats. All right, let's take a look at this. This comes from Data MB. It says United are first in expected goals, first on shots and targets, first in counterattacks, second in touches in the box, third in positional attacks, and third in pressing. So the fact is, those are all high statistics for the same type of thing, which is attacking football. United are a good attacking side. Statistically, all sorts of things, they are a good attacking side. And that's where it gets really frustrating, is that this is where all the discussions is centered on, is our attacking. That it's always all about attacking. It's always, that's all the discussion. We don't attack right in this and that. Our problems this season have been defensive. And, you know, I brought up after week 3, hey, it looks like we're actually a decent attacking side. And it's too soon. All right, that's fair. I can understand that. Look, I can believe somebody's when they want to say it's too soon after 3 weeks. But then it was week 4, we were tops of these measures. Week 5, we were tops of these measures. Week 6, we're top of these measures. Week 7, we're the top of these measures. There's a certain point where you have to go and say, all right, hold on a second. Maybe our insistence that it's circumstantial goes out the window when you keep adding data points and the numbers keep coming out the same way. United are a good attacking side. They are. They are a good attacking side. It's like, it's not even debatable. It's not even debatable. You know, they are a good attacking side. And I pointed this out the other day. There was in my post-match, sorry for the white screen there, but that it's not, you know, there was this stuff being said like, well, okay, it's when it's from set pieces and penalties. Well, no. United have the most open play expected goals. So, well, it's when they're losing. No. It's when United are level and winning, they actually create the most chances. It's at the end of games. Well, no. It's 16 to 30 minutes in, and it's at the start of the second half. In fact, there's only about a fifth of it is at the end of games when we're chasing it right at the end. It's all outside the box. Well, no, it's the penalty area. It's the 6-yard box, and they've created the most in those areas as well. It's all counterattacks. Again, no, it's not. Like, it's just bullshit. It's just endless piles and piles and piles of bullshit about why we're poor. And here's the thing that's really funny about it. The moment that we change the keeper, we get a clean sheet. Not an accident. A lot of it just comes down to personnel. Honestly, a lot of it comes down to personnel. Okay. Even defensively, we're not terrible, but because we've cut down on the shots conceded and even our expected goals against is not terrible, but we have had the worst keeper in the game. Before this, when I was going live, there was quotes from Peter Schmeichel. Okay. What did he say? He said, shit, where was it? I was looking at it before I went live. And, okay, here's what he says. He says, when I played, and I think it was the same for Edwin and David De Gea, we had to save the team 10 points a season, not give them away. And that's what we've gotten used to in the last couple of years. Goalkeeper giving goals and points away. It was nice to see a clean sheet, really good and solid goalkeeping performance from Senna Lammens. And that's the truth of it, right? We've actually had decent stats, and our goalkeepers have been costing us extra when they're supposed to make your defense look better than it is. That's why you want a good goalkeeper. They're supposed to make your team look better than it is. We've had the exact opposite. Example, City at the weekend against Brentford, same team we just played. Thiago gets out on the break in open space after a mistake by City. Donnarumma, instead of sitting on his line like Bayindir, reads it, comes all the way out, doesn't go to ground instantly, and City don't concede. And guess what? City win the 3 points. That's it. Same thing. Same striker, same one-on-one, same position. The keeper acts differently. Thiago screws it up. You could say, well, Thiago was better against... Doesn't matter. Either way, the keeper makes the striker think and has to have an influence on that situation.
Damn, I was not aware of those stats. I thought we just spammed XG after going behind. Genuinely happy to be wrong. Smiley face emoji.
Well, I appreciate that, Michael. And that's the thing, is that people share so much bullshit that it gets accepted as truth. And then it's hard to actually look at what's going on and what's going wrong, right? I'm excited my manager's getting bailed out by Lammens. Abso-fucking-lutely. You know who else has been bailed out by their keeper? Every manager in Europe who has a good keeper. How many times did Alisson save Liverpool? How many times did Ederson save City? Many, 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 many times. Many, many times. That's what they're there for. Believe it or not, your goalkeeper is an 11th player. You get to pick 11. Your goalkeeper's one of them. Just like you expect your other players to contribute to the team, you also want your keeper to contribute to the team. How does the keeper do that? By making saves. That's their job. Yes, I want a keeper bailing us out because that would mean you have a very good keeper. Okay? So that's what you want. You want the 11th player out there. That's it. He's your manager. He's our manager too. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, but that's the thing, you know, is it's like, yes, it's good to have a keeper. A change in keeper probably has us seeing 2 or 3 more points on the season already. That's it. You know, it's like, that's the truth. So there's that. And then there's this thing about the stats too, and like understanding what does stats actually mean. I want to show you a really, really interesting graph. This shocked me. Genuinely shocked me because I've been kind of looking for this. I've been kind of looking for this to find this, and I was actually incredibly impressed by this, and I'm surprised. But here, this comes from Kees Van Hemmen from the Devils in the Details podcast. Look at this graph. Okay, this is an 8-match rolling average of XG for and XG against. Obviously, red is against, blue is for. So you want blue to be high, red to be low. This is when Ruben Amorim started. So it got really bad. Yep, second half of last year. But if you actually look, this is insane. Like insanely good. You want a gap. The bigger the gap between the blue and the red, the better. Okay? This is a visualization of the progress that has been going on. Last year, towards the end of the season, it was actually in the middle we were really bad, but towards the end of the season, we started to really cut down defensively, but offensively, we were horrific, like some of the worst in the league. This is changing a lot. This is the Athletic often does these visuals similarly when they're looking at managers. This is essentially how many chances are we creating and how many are the opposition creating. The red line's trending in the wrong way. Well, yes, but it has flattened. Yeah, but bear in mind, this is the average. Like, yeah, sure, we would love our defense to be way down here. But as long as there's a big gap, it's okay. As long as there's a huge gap, that's fine. All right? This is what we want to see. This is all going the right way. We are creating more and more, and we are starting to manage our chances, not as excellently as maybe we could, but we're keeping it to a good level in terms of the chances we're conceding. Key says here, I have no idea if this will last, but I will say it's literally impossible to be bad if you keep the numbers where they are. And it's true. Again, when you talk about things like XG, one of the problems you have is that people will say, well, it's XG, you don't win games, you don't do it, all of these kinds of things, all of that, right? Fine, that's fair enough. But I think it's worth understanding what XG actually means. For people who say it's useless, it's not, okay? To be quite clear, everything a manager can everything a manager can do people are going to hate this statement. Everything that a manager's responsible begins and ends with XG. Because XG essentially tells you where you're at till the moment the ball leaves the player's foot. For you or for the opposition when they're taking a shot. A high XG simply means you are getting yourself into the positions to score goals more often than anybody else.
Van der Sar won us the Champions League BTW. Smiley face emoji.
It is annoying when people don't understand something and they just completely reject the entire premise. Because the manager can't take the shot for you. What it is measuring is where you're at when the shot is taken. High XG generally means, well, it factually means you are getting into good attacking positions. A high XG, that's what it means. A low expected goals against means you are not allowing the opposition into a lot of attacking chances. The reality is these stats do matter because they do tell you whether you are playing well or not. Points are all that matter in the real world at the end of that. Everybody knows that. Nobody's stupid. Nobody's under any kind of false impression over what points mean. Nobody's under any false idea of that you don't win based on XG, obviously. But I will tell you that if you look at it and understand the stat, it just means you performing well. I don't care if you're getting chances, but missing them. Problems come when you're not getting chances. Right, exactly. That is literally XG. Okay? That is the point. It is very, very useful. It is very, very useful. You know? We know that points is the end goal. But at the same time, how you earn points is generally performance. The more, it's still a game of numbers over the course of a season. Usually, over the course of a longer period, not usually, every team that wins the league is in the top few in terms of expected goals. Every single one. You can look at it every single season. And I understand why someone would want to look at non-penalty expected goals and say, oh, that doesn't look as good. You're right. So the idea that what's the point of that? That penalty goals, penalty XG doesn't count? Why? We earned the penalties. Did we not? Mbumo doesn't get any expected goals when he gets dragged down in the box. He has a chance to even have a higher XG than that. Why would you just eliminate two of our big chances by taking away penalties? I don't understand the point of that discussion. Like, I understand why someone would want to look at it, but why? The penalties are a part of the game. You know, yeah, it's lower, of course, because we've taken 3. Here, let me pull it up. It's lower because we've taken 3. The trend is still there. The numbers are still there. But we also had a great chance against Fulham. We had a great chance against Brentford. You remove those, there's no point. Those things count, You create penalties as well by having the ball in the opposition box. You can't get a penalty without getting the ball into the opposition box. You know what I'm saying? So even all that aside, penalties count because you don't get penalties in the midfield. You get penalties in the opposition box. You have to have players and the ball in the opposition box to get a penalty. So you have to use it. Goals scored goals scored is the biggest indicator, but the biggest correlation to goals scored is expected goals, right? But yeah, there's literally you can go year by year and look at it. And the point of it is not to say, oh, we've won the XG trophy, It's to understand. It's to understand what these things mean. That's all. There's nothing else to it. It's to understand what these things mean. We are in the opposition box more than anybody, so of course we're finishing we're winning. I mean, let's look at XG for last season, just for example, just so you can look at the numbers and say that these things matter. 1, 2, 3, 4. The top 4 were the top 4 in XG. It's not a fluke. Bournemouth were a little overperforming. Newcastle were 5. It's an extremely strong correlating factor. In fact, it's actually stronger in league position last year than goals were. The top 4 in XG finished top 4 in the league. We can go in the year before, and we'll see the same thing, I bet. Look, 1, 3, there you go. Newcastle overperformed it a bit, but it's still very strong. 3, 1, 7, 2, 8, 5, 4. Again, if you're good, usually you will win. You will win. And you can look at it year by year and just know it is an important stat. Sometimes teams overperform it. Sometimes teams underperform it. Right? But it is an important stat. Good teams have good XG, bad teams have bad XG. That's just getting chances and all that. So that matters. That's important. Now, there's another thing I wanted to show. Let's see if I can find it. There it is. Here we go. I wanted to compare our last how many seasons did I end up doing? Because I have all the way back to Jose Mourinho. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 seasons. 7 games, expected goals versus expected goals against. So this is in reverse order, okay? Just so you can see it. This is in reverse order, all right? Meaning lower XGA is high, so you know that high equals good. This is the most chances we've created in 8 years in the first 7 games. In 8 years. It's the most chances we've created. So if you want to look at like progress and whether we are improving in certain areas, we are. We are. It's the most, we've created the most chances we have in 8 years after 7 games. That's something. Because I'm comparing to the first 7 games of the last 8 years. It's the most. So yes, we are producing chances. At some point, the goals have to start arriving, right? And in terms of goals conceded, well, these are the last 2 seasons down here, just so you have an example to compare to the last 2 most recent seasons. We've created more than, this is last year. So this is the team taken over. We've gone from here to here. That is progress in the performance. It is progress in the performance. It's even better than Ten Hag's second season, which wasn't great either, but it's progress on that as well. We create more, we concede fewer chances. It's better than the start of Ollie's second season, which wasn't very good. The only season it's indubitably worse than, and not by much, mind you, is Ollie's third season, which was a very odd one because we started out really, really well when Ronaldo came back, and then it went to shit really fast. And let's look at points and goals. All right, here's points in 10th, okay? We have 10 points after 7 games. That's better than last season, where we had 8, the season before, where we had 9, and it's better than Solskjaer's first season, when we had 9. It's the same as Solskjaer's second season, and the same as Jose Mourinho's third. It's 2 points worse than Ten Hag's first season, and it's 4 points worse than Ole's first season when Ronaldo returned. In terms of goals, it's better than each of the last 2 seasons. We scored only 5 in Ten Hag's second season in the first 7 games, and we scored only 7 in Ten Hag's third season after 7 games. So if you compare it to the last 8 years, it actually shows up pretty well. If you compare it to the last 2 seasons, we are better than the last 2 seasons. Am I saying we're great? Am I saying everything's fine? Am I saying we're the finished team? No. But we are better. Performing better than the last couple of seasons. We just are. That's correct. We are better than the last couple of seasons. Okay? So it's important to understand this, right? If we can keep up the performances the way that we've had, that's just permanent seasons, the first 7 games of permanent season of each season. We are improving. Is there room for improvement? More? Absolutely. Is it good enough yet? No. But we are improving. We are getting better and better week by week, month by month. 1 second. We are getting better. We are better than we were the last couple of seasons. And that is with having a pretty tough start to the year schedule-wise. So it's just important to contextualize the reality of stats. It's important to contextualize things and say, are we good? Are we bad? I don't know. We're in the middle still, because all the good stats have to result in goals and wins. All the good stats have to result in goals and wins, of course. But the performances are better and the results are better than the last couple of years. So do I think we're on the right track? Yeah, I think we're on the right track. I think that we have to see it keep going. We have to see it keep going. Of course, it has to keep improving. It has to keep going in that direction. It has to keep going in that direction for it to be successful. Don't get me wrong. We're not there yet, but we just have to hope that it keeps going now. There's enough to look at it and say it's better. Where the criticism should definitely fall is We got to be wary of picking failed players that are not contributing to the team. We have to be wary of that. That could be worrisome. We have to be wary of, picking. Those are things where I think Amorim is getting it wrong. I think he's too slow on the draw to drop certain players. We have to be wary of that. Because it affects a lot. He can't be too conservative with his selection. He can't be too conservative with the way that he sets up the team, because when we attack poorly, we tend to defend even worse. Right? So that's how I see it. That's what has to essentially, there are things to improve. There's no doubt about it. If you were to ask me today, what is going wrong, I would say number one thing for me is in-game management. Because frankly, we are a couple of predictable penalty misses from being in the top 5 right now, top 4, results-wise. And they were predictable. Even though the game against Fulham was predictable, even after Bruno missed the penalty, we should have won if he'd made the right subs at that point in time. I think the in-game management was poor. I think at the weekend, one of the encouraging things was the in-game management was spot on. It was the right changes at the right time that helped to get back some control of the game. I think that's number one. I think number 2 is the personnel selection. And I think number 3, which we saw a bit different this weekend, is play our game. We started out playing our game. Once we got a 2-0 lead, I don't mind being a bit conservative at that point in time. Going long, relieving the pressure, but play our game. We played into Brentford's hands 100% in that game. Way too much time preparing for them, way too much thinking about them, picking the lineup based on them. We can't do that. We need to pick a lineup based on what we want to do, what we're trying to get done, how we want to attack. I think that's the majority of it. I genuinely do not have a problem with the system. It's the personnel. And that all goes hand in hand, to be quite honest. I think it's the same thing. So it's sort of pointless in that discussion. But I think that's where he can get it wrong still and mess it up if he doesn't fix things, doesn't get things going the right way. So that's my hope, is that he turns that around. We made some good selections, but he has to continue to be brave with the team choice, frankly. I don't honestly think there's that much else wrong. I've watched a few other people's videos. I've watched some things. I watched something from Stephen Housen talking about one of the concerns he has, which I think is fair too, in terms of how the midfield are pressing, where they're leaving too big of gaps. And I like that. And I think that's fair. I think there's fair criticisms in there, but there's a lot of decent things. There's a lot of decent things that we're, so yeah, that's where I am. That's where I'm at. But I wanted to give that explanation because it does frustrate me, and I'm gonna be fighting that battle over this whole international break. And it's not a battle of everything's great and United are wonderful. That's not the battle. It's a lot of, it's just, I wish we could have honest discourse. You know what I'm saying? I wish we could have honest discourse about things that are wrong instead of just making things up. Because there are things that are wrong. There are things that are wrong. But it feels like we're always talking about the wrong things, the things that don't matter, the things that aren't true. You know? That's part of it. And when I see analysis that makes sense to me and seems like it properly explains it, what's going wrong, I get it. I get it. Like again, when I watched the Housen's video, and he talked about how the midfield, instead of like they're triggering at the wrong times and running off pressing when they shouldn't. I agree. I've shown that in the videos too. That is something that's happening that I think Ruben can sort out and needs to sort out, because it leaves us too open to certain transitions and attacks and things like that. So yeah, we'll see. And then we have to keep getting recruitment right. We need players, but that's all. I'm so sort of, and again, the thing I will say is it's really, really okay. Last thing on this, it's really okay for people to have different opinions and people to not like the way we play football, but just say it that way. You don't like it. If you criticize playing long ball because you don't like long ball, cool. Like, we all like different styles of play. Me personally, I could not stand being a fan of Pep or Arteta's team in the way that they've played the last few years. Actually, Pep's now is a lot more entertaining than it used to be, but I couldn't stand it. And I would criticize it heavily on the basis of I hate the way Arsenal play. I hate it. I hate it so much. Is it effective? Absolutely. I hate it. If you don't like long ball, that's fine. Just say, I don't like long ball. Shit, maybe this manager isn't for me, but I'm a United fan. So hopefully we do well with it. It's that simple. And too often, I think people take their opinions and throw it in there. Exactly that, DB Cooper. Like, that's the part that I know is where it gets disingenuous. A lot of the critique about inflexibility, not adapting to the players. Now we have a 6'6" guy who can leap into the fucking sun, and you're getting criticized for playing long ball at times? No. Do it. It's unstoppable. Nobody can stop it. Nobody can stop that. Nobody's going to win that. He's going to win all those jumps and leaps, and it's going to kill teams. It got us a win against Chelsea, and it's going to get us other games. And he played long at Sporting too. Yes, it's a part of his style. How many times I talk about the big switch, about sending the ball out wide quickly, about those long balls. You don't like it, that's fine. But that's just an opinion. Doesn't mean it's not good. It's just an opinion. And I just wish we could get honest discussion over that kind of thing. We still need to cross the ball more. Yeah, that is something I would say as well that I want him to work on coaching. Cross the fucking ball into the box. Too many times when we get the ball into an optimal situation, we're not crossing when we could from the right positions, from the right situations, from the right spots. We've got to cross the ball better. We have to. So there's things that I need to see, improved. A lot of it comes down to the final third. Coaching in the final third needs to be better. And aside from that, it's mostly personnel and in-game management. And I think those things need to be there. But I'm really happy to hear, City just got a win. I know it was a long ball into Haaland, but apparently we can't. Whatever. So anyway, I'm really happy to hear and debate with anybody who wants to bring up seemingly valid stuff in terms of critiques and in terms of problems, in terms of stuff like that. Totally happy to, because I think there are things, and I want to look into it more. Like, I was hard on Casemiro. I still think Casemiro's got his issues, but I was wrong on that one. He's the right midfielder right now for what we're doing, unfortunately. So makes a difference when he plays as well. But anyway, that's it, guys. Stick with it. I think tomorrow I'll make a video diving into these stats, diving into these progress, diving into everything. I'll do all of that. And then tomorrow I'll probably do all that, covering some of the stuff I covered here, and see if I can figure out maybe what am I seeing that might actually be wrong. And then I want to follow up on some transfer stuff as well and get into some of that this week. Next week, the videos will be less. I'm going to be traveling next week for a bit. And yeah. So anyway, I'll be back tomorrow with something. I'll be back tomorrow later on this week. I'll look into more transfer stuff and see where we are at. I also am curious to see what happens, if I can give any insight in terms of the internal side of belief over how things are going, as I kind of shared in the last week, in terms of instructions, in terms of would Ruben Amorim take on certain things on board? What else might we see in terms of changes moving forward? So I have a few things to look into over the breaks. And then we can do a call-in as well. Maybe a live call in tomorrow or something like that as well. In the afternoon, I'll take a look at that. Okay. Thanks for hanging out today. Appreciate you all very much. Good to see you all. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. I think that is it. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for the donations. Thanks for everything. Make sure to smash a like on a video on your way out. Appreciate you all being here, and I will catch you later. Have a good one, everybody. Goodbye. Enjoy your evening.